Joining us now is Maria alba-fisch. She is the collaborative divorce team of the Hudson Valley. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit, you were going to talk about a collaborative divorce. What are families facing? What are couples facing that are causing the divorces today?
Well, there are many things families face that, first of all, I think right now there are major economic strains. And what we find is that if the economics go up or they go down, both of those tend to be stressful factors on families. It's interesting, it's more the change rather than just the loss of money or the increase of money. It's the change factor. The other is our families are under enormous pressure. Again, there's an economic factor behind it, but where women have to work as well as men have to work. How the kids are going to be cared for, where they're going to be cared for, what's going to happen is a constant discussion in families, and that's a lot of work. Another thing, which I think my husband mentioned when he was here, is that the expectations in families for couples are very high. What we expect a marriage to do for a couple is very high in this country, and so the fact that people can get disappointed easily is true, and they may or may not have the resilience to deal with the disappointment. It's also true that there's an enormous amount of demand that families do everything for their kids. So we see books like The Hurried Child, things like that. In my clinical practice with the Taconic counseling group, I see families that are desperately trying to do everything so their kids can have every advantage, and they get exhausted, and no one notices that they need to be taking care of each other. Those are strains on a marriage.
Yeah, I think kids are really run around an awful lot today and really even expected a lot out of them. And I do think youth and children can achieve a lot too at a young age, and keeping things in balance. And when you mentioned the scale, I remember hearing that once too, of if you look at a scale of 1 to 10 and someone entering a marriage feels their marriage would be like a 6, and then their marriage ends up being a 7, they're just like 3. It's better than what they thought. But if someone's going in expecting a 9 or a 10 and their marriage is an 8, when even though their marriage has a lot of better components than the person who hit the 7, because they expected more, they're not satisfied.
That's the issue, is the dissatisfaction and what we learn to do with it. Sure.
Tell us about what a collaborative divorce is and how it helps the family.
Well, first of all, collaborative divorce is a recent development. In 1990 is when the first person began to float this idea. It really involves 2 large components. One is that there are a team of professionals, attorneys, mental health people, and financial people who help a family reorganize. And that is really how we think about it. A divorce requires a reorganization of the family. The other is that all these people sign an agreement, including the clients, meaning the couple, sign an agreement about the rules of how we're all going to behave. That is, attorneys do not have to do the adversarial thing that they have to do in the courts. This is not litigation. There are new rules for this. Everybody signs on these rules, so the attorneys, in representing their clients well, do not have to fight with the opposing counsel. So there are discussions, it's open, people are helped with the emotions that are inevitably there. That's part of why the mental health people are there. They're given expert advice from a financial person who looks at the whole picture, not what's better just for you or better for him, but rather what's going to be helpful for the whole family. There's a child specialist who looks at what the kids need and how the parents who might not be thinking clearly during the divorce, how they might be helped to plan well for after the divorce. And the couple is helped to discuss these things. So they have coaches that come in to help them have conversations they may not have even been able to have in their marriage. That's the sort of package. However, it's crucial to know that everybody signs a contract that we're not going to court, and that the rules of the way we behave in this are determined and agreed upon, so that people are transparent, they're open with information, they agree to be transparent, and so things are discussed openly.
Well, any divorce is a sad situation, but sometimes it just can't be helped. I mean, what are situations in a marriage that maybe a marriage can survive and not have to go through the divorce?
You mean if people are approaching it, how could they maybe
or they're
avoid
thinking
it?
about it, yeah.
Well, one of the things, if people have gotten that close to considering a divorce, but they're not sure, and often people are not sure, we also have an option, which is called a last-ditch effort, so that they can have someone help them look at it. We are not, the collaborative team doesn't do that themselves. We have people in our team that could do it, but we have other people who look with the couple at their marriage and say, okay, if you want to consider saving this marriage, here's the kind of work. We can look at what the troubles are. We can look at the work you'll need to do. If you're really prepared to do that, we can find someone to help you do it. And so then you can see, can this marriage truly be saved? Often people wait too long to go for that kind of help. Often when they get to the point of divorce, it's already too late. They've gone too far down the road. One of the nice things about collaborative is because the process does not feed animosity and antagonism and bitterness, some people can reverse course. They can actually back up out of the process and reconcile. And we've had that happen.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. What are some advice that you have for couples that, you know, thank goodness, you know, really don't ever want to be divorced or not thinking that, but are just struggling in their marriage that can really help them?
Well, there are a number of things, and these are principles in collaborative as well. Respectful communication is vital, both terms, respectful and communication. One of the things that Gottman found in his research on marriage is that contempt and denigrating your spouse is one of the most damaging factors in a marriage. It will destroy the friendship that ought to be there. So finding ways to be respectful and to say what you need to say at the same time is not so easy. The other is being able to really hear what your spouse is trying to say. Many of us will, in a conversation, be listening so that we can then get to say what we want to say. That's a human impulse. You know, we're interested in what we have to say. But learning to listen so you really hear what another person says and you can be responding to what they're saying rather than what you think they're saying or what you want to be saying. Those are factors that I think are crucial. And sometimes people need help in learning to do those. Sometimes couples need help even if they're not in trouble in just figuring out how to have a conversation that works. One of the reasons in collaborative we have these teams of coaches is because in fact having those conversations is so difficult once you're considering divorce that you really need active help in having a conversation that's difficult.
Why do you think like maybe people communicated or thought they communicated before they got married and then now that they're married they're not communicating?
Well, I think first of all, we have different expectations of marriage. Those expectations are often governed by what our own experience was in our own families. So we come with hidden expectations. So in the relationship, we're building a relationship, our focus is on that. Once we're married, we have other expectations which often have to do with our own past or what we think the future ought to look like. And certainly when children enter the picture, how we want the other one to be as a parent, how we want to be as a parent, whether we can share our fears and build on each other's strengths, both of those are crucial. Children are a major advantage and reward in a marriage, and they're also a substantial strain. And we don't necessarily go into parenthood knowing that well enough and looking for some help from each other on how to manage this whole new event.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, having raised a daughter myself, it's like you're really not prepared for family life and raising children unless you really educate yourself and read a lot of books or you have other mothers that have gone through stuff or know that, oh, that's normal and things like that. It's just amazing how many parents today just are winging it, you know, as far as parenting.
Most parents are winging it.
Yeah, and how, you know, crazy it can get at times, even though you love your children and you want to do things as best you can. There are little tricks of the trade that can help make your life and your child's life better and, you know, your spouse. And I definitely can see that has how when people, you know, once they're married and they have children, how they change, you know, as parents. Because like you said, you see the different things that one person thinks as a parent is what you should do and another person thinks. And it's just like, can become combative just over, you know, the different raising the children.
Well, one of the things I've seen in my, again in my clinical practice, is that the couple will often stop taking care of each other. They get very busy taking care of the children, and of course that's important. But they sometimes forget that their spouse needs care and needs attentiveness. They're very busy and they're now overloaded, and all of us agree that babies are first online for nurturance, but it's easy to forget that adults need it too.
Yeah, and that's true, because you often hear like a date night, and I have a couple friends that have been married, for 10 and 20 years, and they still date. Right. And it's like, how do you even find time? But like you'll call them up and they're like, oh, I have to go, I'm going on a date tonight, and it's really cute, but they prioritize that. And as busy as they get, even if they don't have the money, they'll do something that is free to spend that time alone, and I think that does help them connect and nurture their marriage.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's one of the things that, because children need a great deal, we forget, and it's forgotten at the cost of the marriage sometimes.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming today and helping our audience, and I want to thank you for watching, and I encourage you to write to Janet Paul Crouch at TBN P.O. Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711. Tell them how much you love Joiner Town here in New York.